Hey, yeah, this is Sydney, and I am here to talk us through it for the week of Wednesday, June 11th to Tuesday, June 17th. My week is a little skewed over because I record my podcast with Bender on Mondays and try to make sure that that's out on Tuesday. And, life does what it does, and we just try to get in where we fit in. I also wanted to apologize for not being face forward on camera for the last couple of weeks. I've been traveling. There was a astrological conference that I help run called NORWAC that I was facilitating with the family, and also I run a women's weekend for a whole bunch of queer women in the woods, and it's super fun but also really exhausting, and I just couldn't get rid of the bags under my eyes. So yeah, it's also Kepler finals, all sorts of stuff. I'm in school trying to get my astrological diploma. It's going to take a while. I'm just beginning that particular journey, even though I've been studying for a long time. And yeah, I just want to thank you for hanging in there with me. And let's get into kind of the major notes of the week. Mercury just entered Cancer. So he left his home in Gemini and entered the watery, intuitive, emotional depths of Cancer. He did that on Sunday at 4 p.m. Jupiter just entered Cancer. So he finally left his sign of detriment and now is in the sign of his exaltation. He did that on Monday at 2:02, but Jupiter is now kind of in some dicey waters. One, he's anaretic at that 0 degree mark. It's a critical degree on the Aries point. And so there's some big Jupiterian news. And obviously, there's a lot going on in the world right now around legalities and judges and our patriotism and cults and all sorts of stuff. Education could go on and on. So Jupiter is not out of dicey waters. He is very close to his square with Saturn, and Saturn is in the sign of his fall. He's not happy in Aries, but here we are. We're just going to be doing that. Jupiter's also with an orb to square Neptune, which won't happen until the next episode that I do. It's going to perfect on June 18th. Let's see. Moon is out of bounds until Saturday morning around 9 a.m. Mercury is out of bounds until June 20th. And we get the sun square the nodes this week. That's the eclipse midpoint. We also have Mars within an orb of a square to Uranus all week. This can be fairly violent and explosive. And we start the week with a full moon, or this podcast's week with a full moon. Okay, I think those are the major things. Let's get into the minor and the major things and go through the week. All right, friends. So Wednesday, June 11th, Wednesday is Mercury's day. Mercury has just entered Cancer, and we have a full moon in Sagittarius at 20 degrees and 39 minutes. So first and foremost, this full moon is going to happen at 12:43 a.m. It's going to be at 20 degrees and 39 minutes. So if you have any mutable placements, including your angles, around the 20 degrees, give or take 3 to 4 degrees on either side, this lunation is likely for you. If you have any planets that are in fire, you're going to get some nice sextiles. So there's opportunity here to use the full moon to your advantage. Now, as a reminder, full moons are a culmination. It's a awareness point. It is a time to let go or to realize, to bring something to light. The moon is at its fullest sense of brightness, right, in the sky, because it is opposite from the sun, is the furthest away that it can get, so you can see the full light. When we have a full moon in Sagittarius, This is going to bring into awareness subjects around education, wisdom, higher knowledge, philosophy, travel, judicial things, laws, things about confidence, things about freedom and adventure. There's certainly something here about right brain, left brain stuff, because the sun being in Gemini and the moon being in Sagittarius, this is an access of knowing and information. This is an axis of thinking and processing, or gathering data and then philosophizing about it, maybe finding the bigger, broader picture. So it's also relational because it is the opposition, right? So it could be coming to some sort of realization about how you operate inside of a relationship that has to do with the sort of information or conversations that you're having, or the faith that you have in being inside of that relationship. You're going to want to look at your chart, at your natal chart, and see where Sagittarius is happening in your chart. So, wherever that is, it's going to light up that house, that pizza slice, and say, hey, something's coming to light here, some sort of realization, some sort of awareness, culmination. The moon is extremely out of bounds for this lunation. And so that means we're feeling big, broad feelings. Whenever a planet goes out of bounds, it is behaving out of pocket. It is doing more moony things in this case than it typically does, right? So it's where you have a feeling, hey, I'm having a feeling. Now it's like, I'm having a feeling, right? That kind of thing. And the moon in Sag as a collective, this is the people, and people are longing for freedom and truth and like the sort of justice that we can get in these higher institutions. And we can see that happening right now in our world. So the only mutability in the sky right now are the lights, the sun and the moon. Everything else is in other signs. They're kind of pushing energy, cardinality, a lot of go, go, go. We have Saturn, we have Mercury, we have Jupiter, we have Venus, we have Chiron. Like there's a lot of that, right? We do have Mars and Leo. I'm going to talk about him later on this week. The sun is conjunct the fixed stars Bellatrix and Capella, and they have the nature of Mars and Mercury. So I think this, again, is going to bring up things around conflict and strife around the ideals and truths that we are expressing. The moon is in the 21st mansion, which is Albalda, also known as the city. Keywords are defeat, destructive enmity, internal conflict, people or forces at odds, and division. This is a signifier of endings, playing an endgame, time to cut losses. I think this is a really interesting mansion to have as we are now within the midpoint between eclipses. Jupiter and Mercury, which are the rulers of the sun and the moon, are very close and still talking. They're both in Cancer. Jupiter has the upper hand here because one, it's the greater benefic, and also it's in the sign of his exaltation. So for me, it kind of says like the moon wins more than the sun does. The people have more power, even if there's a lot of strife and conflict. Jupiter and Mercury are in a new phase conjunction. So they're starting something new around the things that it has learned and needing to communicate. Let's see, other things about this. Mercury is quincunx Pluto for this lunation. And so there is some sort of break and adjust that has to do about the messages that it's carrying. Probably having to do with power and control and the power of the people. Pluto and Aquarius. Saturn is within 2 degrees from an exact sextile to Pluto. So there's something emerging here, some new information around the structures that we are trying to change, right? Because it's Pluto. Venus is still within 3 degrees of squaring Pluto. So this is issues with money, certainly, because Venus is our coin. And also issues with like social graces, how we are showing up in the world, how we are behaving and doing the thing of being congenial, friendly. This can also create issues in terms of relationships. The power and control dynamics in relationships can come to light. The sun is sesqui square Pluto, which creates a frustration. There is a frustration that the sun is experiencing and how it can share all of its light and all of the information and data that it has. Saturn and Jupiter with an orb to a square for this lunation. This is Jupiter wanting to expand and Saturn saying, not so fast. And Mercury is barely separating from the Neptune square, so I think that there's still some confusion around the messages that we're trying to carry forward or information that we know or we're intuiting at this time. So all in all, I think that this lunation is very juicy, very fraught with conflict, especially around the things that we believe and the sort of truths that we hold so important to us as a people and also in our own lives. So depending on where this is hitting in your chart, this lunation may show up more for you than other people, right? So if you are a Sag or Pisces rising, Jupiter just entered its sign of exaltation, which is great because that means that hopefully how you are doing is going to be operating a bit better than it has been because it's been in its detriment for the last year. So welcome to a year of hopefully some new growth and feeling a little bit better about yourself. So paying attention to where these things are in your chart is good. And also hopefully with Jupiter just having entered its sign of exaltation, wherever Jupiter is in your chart, hopefully that area of life will improve in some sort of way. And also the areas of life that Sagittarius and Pisces are on the cusp of, those areas of life hopefully will be operating a little bit better, especially after Jupiter clears its square to Saturn. After this lunation, the day continues to be a lot. We have the moon in Sag is going to square the nodes. Now the people are at it's like a crisis point, a choice point. Which way do we go? The resolution to this is going towards that south node in Virgo, which is releasing criticisms, releasing certain things that we've believed, anxiety, release. We also at 1241 will have Mercury in Cancer sextile Venus and Taurus. So these are new messages around what we're trying to get done in terms of love, money, finances, relationships, being able to connect in these sort of ways with the sort of conversations we're trying to have here. New ideas that are flowing, right? It's a really lovely sextile. We do have some anxiety happening at 4:26 with the moon in Sag, Quincunx, Uranus, and Taurus. And at 6:55 p.m., we have the moon entering Capricorn, and the void, of course, is going to end. It's a very short void, of course, between 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. Moon in Capricorn, now we get down to business. What is brass tacks? We had all of these hopes and dreams of, flying forward into the future, of going into new horizons and frontiers, spreading our message of hope, of truth. And now the moon in Capricorn says, okay, now what are we going to do to establish this? In the evening, we're going to have 9:06 p.m. and 10:50 p.m. The moon in Capricorn is going to square Saturn in Aries, and then it's going to square Neptune in Aries. So there becomes a limit, a okay, these are my limitations here. This is what I need to deal with, right? This can bring on a sense of feeling a little bit of a crisis around the things that we need to do and get done. And then that square to Neptune really brings a sense of confusion, disillusionment, and hopefully not hopelessness, but it could be a bit of a challenging thing to deal with for today. And always invite the full moon to help you to release whatever doesn't serve you in this walk that you're doing in life. So whatever truths that actually aren't true, whatever stories you've told yourself that do not serve you, standing up for what you believe in, even if that means you have to walk away from something that you were told. Yeah. So that is Wednesday, June 11th, and that really juicy, meaty full moon. So let's go into Thursday, June 12th. Thursday is Jupiter's day. Jupiter is in her exaltation in Cancer. She is intuitively spreading her wings. It's a great benefic in the sky. I'm hoping that we're all feeling a bit more hopeful for our future endeavors and able to connect to our dreams and visions in more positive ways. So we don't have a ton of aspects for Thursday. We do have some new structures or new ways of going about interacting with power forming 1:39 a.m., Moon in Capricorn, semi-sextile Pluto in Aquarius. We have 7:22 a.m., the Moon in Capricorn trine Venus in Taurus. This is a nice working Earth trine and kind of okay, this is what we need to do in order to establish our sense of security and stability. It's a really lovely trine, nice working energy. Now, after that, I think the day kind of takes a sideways turn. At 8:55 a.m., the moon opposes Mercury in Cancer. This is going to happen at 7 degrees, 16 minutes, and the void, of course, is going to begin, and it's going to remain for the rest of the day. Now, moon opposite Mercury are emotional outbursts, right? This is a confrontation, emotional confrontation with how we are feeling, a verbal sparring around that it has like kind of an emotional lens. Mercury in Cancer connects through speaking about what it's feeling and sensing. And the moon in Capricorn is kind of like, no. So there could be some conflict here. There could be some sort of outburst that says, like, I'm trying to establish my boundaries here and I'm feeling really sensitive about it. Then we have a sesqui square to Mars and Leo from the moon. This is a really, I think, an angry kind of frustration. 8:50 p.m. Mercury quintile Chiron, not terrible, but I do think this brings a sensitivity into how we are communicating. We are aware of the wound and we are kind of trying to work through that. And 9:23 p.m. we have the moon in Capricorn sesqui square Uranus, which I think is going to bring a more like emotional intensity in our frustration that we're feeling around how we can express ourselves. So it's kind of good news, bad news bears, right? Morning, we're working with it. We're doing what we can to recover from this full moon that happened the day before. And then once we get into the late morning, all the way through the rest of the day, we have some frustration that is occurring for us. I think it is a good thing to remember that because we're now in the void of course moon, maybe not trying to start anything new. And it's also very possible that whatever conflicts or conversations that you're having with other people in order to establish something new, that they might not come to pass during this time. Okay, so let's talk about Friday, June 13th. Friday is Venus's day. She is still at home in Taurus. She's cozy. She's only answering to herself right now. She is, in the sign of security, stability, groundedness. She likes the pleasures in life. She wants the cozy blanket and the chocolate and possibly the nice handbag. The moon is in Capricorn all day, and it's in the last kind of degrees. It won't enter Aquarius until the next day. So just know that we have the moon in Cap all day. Void of course moons. Today, nothing much might come of whatever is established or trying to be established on this day with the void of course moon, which I think is interesting considering that at 7:35 a.m. we have the sun in Gemini square the nodes at 22 degrees and 50 minutes. This is the eclipse midpoint. We are now halfway between the eclipses, and it also happens to be pretty much the solar return of the President of the United States. He's at a crisis point. He is at a choice point in which there is a skip step in integrating the solar principle of being, curious and informative and data driven. And there's something here about which way do we go in order for us to achieve our destiny or to heal the wounds of the ego. Sun skipped step is a unintegrated solar principle from previous lifetimes. And it points to the North Node in Pisces being the resolution node, which is about release and sacrifice and an all-encompassing sort of love and acceptance. It's compassion. And we are at a critical juncture collectively around how do we get there versus where we have been. There's not a lot of aspects today, which I think is going to kind of bring in this like liminal space sort of feeling. We get some quintiles and biquintiles. And then at 3:06 p.m., we have the moon in Capricorn, quincunx the sun in Gemini. And this is like an anxiety. The moon in Capricorn wants to establish, securities and foundations and boundaries and borders. It exists inside of limits and says, here's the limit. This is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to, build this thing. And the sun in Gemini is just a silly little clown, right? You could say that about our president. But this creates an anxiety. How do you create borders and structures and limits when the other party is scattered in a million different directions, just enjoying picking berries of data out of the sky, and it won't just kind of solidify into one place? And this creates an anxiety between the lights and between us, our instincts and habits and intuitiveness versus our ego and soul needs and desires. At 8:58 p.m., we have the moon square Chiron. And I think that this just adds to the sensitivity and anxiety and woundedness that we are potentially feeling at this point. This is an opportunity to be kind of confronted with the sort of healing that we need to do around our identity, around our egos, and our individuality. Not a lot of aspects today, though. We do have the moon in Capricorn trine the south node in Virgo at 2:30. That's a nice aspect that kind of allows us to kind of diligently go and release, set up different structures and habits, new habits that help us to release old habits, old criticisms. The moon in Capricorn trying the South Node in Virgo facilitates that releasing of old things. All right, so let's go into Saturday, June 14th. There are, I would say, like a medium to large amount of aspects today. So I think that today feels like we are cooking. We have 1:51 a.m. moon trine Uranus and Taurus. You know, there's some sort of instinctual intuitiveness, some sudden insights, emotional insights that could be offered to us, especially in our dreams, in our sleep. We have a biquintile to the sun. That's a feel good aspect from the moon, 3:17 a.m. I think this is kind of, the feeling like I know what I have to do with what I have. 4 a.m., the moon enters Aquarius, and now the void, of course, ends, which is great because hopefully now we're just kind of waking up. So where the moon was feeling limited, blocked, perhaps, or a bit more serious or stoic, now the moon detaches. The moon certainly gets more cerebral. There is a ability to not only intellectualize one's feelings, but also to completely almost look at them outside of themselves. There is now a need to connect with community, or putting the needs of others ahead of our own in order to feel safe and secure. There's also a need for authenticity. And at 5:59 a.m., so 6 a.m., moon quincunx Jupiter in Cancer. I think that this can create there's something about community and safety here. There's maybe an overdoing in terms of how we are trying to connect with community that creates an issue with the sort of security that we're ultimately going for. There could be some sort of anxiety that is created here. 6:20 a.m., we have the moon sextile Saturn. This is a more of an establishing energy. It does feel slightly social, if only because Aquarius and Aries as signs are certainly more social. But the moon and Saturn together is about creating some sort of stability, some sort of security. We like it when, if the moon has to touch Saturn, we want it to touch by, sextile, quintile, trine, that sort of thing. We have the moon sextile Neptune. I think this is, connecting with our vision and our emotional dreams. 10:26 a.m., this is one of the more serious aspects of the moon. It's going to conjunct that retrograde Pluto. So now it's going deep. It's feeling intensely. And there could be something around how we need to connect with community and the people around us. Takes on a little bit of an obsessive tint. When the moon comes up to conjunct Pluto, Pluto goes, I need you to let go of something here. I need you to eliminate, right? Think of Pluto as the planet of elimination. It's also obsession. The moon is being asked to go deeper than it has been going when it comes and touches Pluto. And the moon in Aquarius has been in the air, and now it's being pulled into deeper territory, or perhaps further into the universe. 5:21 p.m., moon by quintile Jupiter in Cancer. This can be a feel-good aspect, feeling a bit more generous, congenial. 8:57 p.m., moon square Venus in Taurus. Now, I think this is like a self-soothe. This is wanting to maybe protect one's peace. Something about security here with Aquarius and Taurus being security signs, the security of mind and freedom versus security of the things that we have, we hold, and we own. This could be pleasure seeking in ways that be a bit cautious around overindulging, especially in drink and also in food. Moon square Venus aspects, moon Venus aspects really want to engage in some enjoyment, whether it's for their good or not. And at 9:22 p.m., we have the moon in Aquarius as we square sun in Gemini. This is some sort of frustration around maybe the ideas that we have and how we go about doing them. We don't have everything that we need in order to connect in the ways that we need to connect, perhaps. Sunday, June 15th. Sunday is the sun's day. We just had sun square the nodes. Really still is within orb, so there could still be something here around a choice point of our solar principle, around our leadership qualities. I feel like because of the mutability of it, it's saying something about going or having the choice really to go this way or that way, right? Pick the path of compassion and forgiveness and the mystery. Mars is anaretic today. And Mars is at the last, this means the last degree. He's at 29 degrees Leo. He is like, I have something to say. I need to be witnessed. It is me, and I am trying to finish up my time here. Glory, 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 right? Mars is bound. So he is ending things. He's cutting things. We have Mars square Uranus this morning at 2:46 a.m. This aspect has been active all week, which I think brings strife and conflict and possibly violent conflict. Very aware that there are protests that are happening right now, needing to be seen and witnessed. People needing to be seen and witnessed, right? And understood and respected. Leo is the sign of respect, right? Needing to be respected, a desire to be respected as an individual inside of like this society. And it is not going so great. So I expected there to have been violent displays that have to do with our resources and also potentially even children, with Leo being the sign of the child. Mars square Uranus is sudden. It's surprising. It's shocking. It can be traumatic. It's very interesting to like record these things right before, because you're just like, what is going to happen? But it is not an easy aspect, certainly, especially with the anareticness of Mars and now Uranus as well. 2:54 a.m. Moon quincunx Mercury. Conversations go astray. What we're trying to communicate is filled with free-floating anxiety. At 7:36 a.m., Jupiter squares Saturn. Today is a lot, right? Jupiter wants to expand and Saturn contracts, it restricts, it blocks, it stops. It says, not so fast there, buddy. It's like Jupiter in Cancer is just like this. It's almost like water that spreads in all of the different directions, right? Clear, and smooth like glass in all of the different directions, perfectly temperatured. And Saturn is the wall that says, but you can't go here. You can't spread here. You can't expand here. You can't go over there. I think there's a limit being expressed here. Jupiter square Saturn can be an economic aspect that has to do with our finances and money and institutions, financial institutions, and what they're trying to do. Government institutions and financial institutions. It's going to have to do with law, Jupiter, and government institutions, Saturn. This can do with education, certainly, judges. Expect there to be some sort of crisis that we're being made aware of, that we are going to be pushed to work through because it is a cardinal square. Cardinal squares say we have to take some sort of action here. But we have the great benefic and we have Saturn, which is the great malefic, but he's not in a great sign here. So I'm very interested to see how this kind of plays out. Be careful with your money. If you are a person that has any cardinal degrees, like around 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, be very, very careful with your money, your investments at this time. I'm not a financial advisor, but this is a financial square. Yeah, there is a limit onto how far we get to go, how far we get to expand. Later on the day or in the morning, we have sesqui-squares from the moon to Saturn, anxiety, to Jupiter, frustration around how we can go forward and expand and get bigger, and a semi-square to Neptune, which is some sort of issue with the dream, maybe feeling a bit confused and not necessarily knowing which way to go. 3:40 p.m., we do have the moon by quintile Mercury, and I think this is a talent for communicating what we need at this time after the frustrating things that we have gone through today. This day is a big day because we have these planets all interacting in big ways, right? The Mars square Uranus and Jupiter square Saturn, these are at anaretic, very close to anaretic degrees. Mars square Uranus, this is the last time Mars is going to square Uranus in this sign, with Uranus being in Taurus for a very long time because Uranus has such a long cycle. But this is a violent crisis. And then Jupiter squaring Saturn is some sort of economic or structural crisis that is being presented to us. Now we get into Monday, June 16th. Monday is the moon's day. We will have moon in Pisces today. We'll enter Pisces around 11:09 a.m. Prior to this, though, with that moon in Aquarius, we do have a nice air trine to the sun at 3:02 a.m. This is like an information circuit, an informational, conversational, social, communicative circuit between our needs and our wants, our habits and our desires, and our vision forward, or principles, creativity principles, how we shine and how we are now working together. 4:30 a.m., we have the moon sextile Chiron. Being able to actively work, it is available to you to work on your healing at this time. The sextile is an opportunity, right? It is a reach across the aisle and a handshake with the other planet, should you choose to. Moon quintile Venus and Taurus at 8:43 a.m. This is really quite lovely. I think she's feeling really comfortable and cozy, a bit safe, and definitely like sowing her little authentic oats. 9:18 a.m. we have the moon square Uranus. I do think that this wakes up that Mars Uranus square from the other side of the kind of T square that it's being created. And so I think that there's an opportunity here for something, some sort of conflict to arise here. Don't necessarily love that. 10:30 a.m. we have the moon opposing Mars and the moon sesqui squaring Mercury. This is also when the void of course will begin. The moon opposing Mars is emotional outbursts, and the moon sesqui square Mercury is, a frustration in being able to communicate what you need. It feels like conflict. It feels like crisis. And with the people being the moon in Aquarius, I think there are conversations and outbursts, emotional, physical, and mental outbursts that are being expressed here that really wakes up that almost that violent square between Mars and Uranus that are still fully within orb. I think it is a little bit of a crisis time for the day. 11:09 a.m. the moon will enter Pisces. She becomes more sensitive. She becomes more psychic. Pisces, the Pisces moon absorbs. It's very absorbent. It absorbs everybody else's feelings and intuitions. And there is something about almost feeling sorry for oneself or allowing one to go a little bit deeper than they potentially need to. Pisces moons can swim in the ocean of everything. It feels all the feelings. And there is a need to establish good emotional boundaries, especially when the moon is in Pisces. Intuitive, psychic. 1:35 p.m. we get the moon semi-sextile Saturn. It's trying to create some sort of boundary here. We dig that, even though it is very minor. It's almost. 2 p.m. moon trine Jupiter. I think whatever maybe conflict, emotional conflict that we had, now we are feeling like we have a way forward, or we intuitively feel a way forward, and that feels nice and good to us. And then we get the moon semi-sextile Neptune and Pluto to wrap up the day at 2:54 p.m. and 5:17 p.m. So there is something about the dream and something about the power structures and the depths that the moon is trying to go to. There's something emerging here. It's not quite established, but there's something emerging. It's kind of like a new seed popping up, the little sprig of grass popping up through the grass. There's a promise, a little bit of a vision, or something is being established. It can also feel a bit intense with moon touching Pluto, but very minor as it is a minor aspect. All right, so let's wrap this up with Tuesday, June 17th. Tuesday is Mars's day, and Mars will enter Virgo. Now there is a desire to fix, analyze. The battles become now verbal, right? It is a battle of the mind versus the battle of the ego before. We do get 12:15 a.m. The sun in Gemini is sextile Chiron in Aries. This is almost like a healing of the wound, a opportunity to explore one's all of the information that is offered to us inside of our healing that we can do. I don't know. I kind of dig it. 8:01 a.m. We do have the moon in Pisces sextile Venus in Taurus. She's feeling lovey. She's feeling cozy. She is sentimental, I think. It's lovely. The Venus and the moon are receiving each other by exaltation. So it is a really, really lovely aspect to have, all things considered. 5:08 p.m., we have the moon trine Mercury in Cancer. Now, this is an intuitive, sensitive, being able to talk about how you feel in compassionate and sensitive ways, or have that conversation with someone else about how they feel and you are feeling connected on an emotional level. 5:32 p.m., we have moon quintile Uranus. This is like a brilliant spark of intuitiveness. It almost feels like a psychicness, right? You don't know where you know what you know, but you know it. And you feel it. And then our last aspect invites us to go a little bit deeper, but not too much. 7:54 p.m., we have that moon semi-square Pluto. I think that there's something about going a little bit deeper and also being able to maybe eliminate or get rid of some of the things that we're feeling or the habits that we have around being or needing to be connected to everything that there is, and saying, actually, I can be a little bit wiser than this. It doesn't have to be everything. It's a wild week.
Hey, thank you for listening to today's Astro Weather with me. I'm Sydney. As a reminder, I'm always open to seeing both new and my beloved returning clients. My website is ddastrology.com. That is D as in dog, astrology.com to check me out, and just click the email buttons in order to schedule with me. If you're into a more conversational feel with your podcast and content, I have a podcast called BS Astrology with my fellow Mercurial Mommy Bender, and we put out episodes every Sunday for the week. Just search BS Astrology on YouTube or wherever you enjoy listening to your podcast, including Spotify, Audible, and more. Have a good day.